I said the Lions won a game. Man, we going all the way. All the way, baby. We about to celebrate. Why? Because the Lions won a game.
Great Lakes State football. The best podcast in the state of Michigan when it comes to talking all levels of football. I'm Vince.
Or Doggy Dog.
And I'm Brett, a.k.a. B Unit.
B Unit!
So anyway, this is episode 9, and we do have a couple guests joining us a little bit later here in the episode. Mr. Chance Stewart, head varsity football coach over at Sturgis High School, his alma mater, and Uday Singh, who's the defensive line coach and defensive coordinator at Cranbrook Kingswood in Bloomfield Hills. Both those guys are my former teammates, actually, at Hillsdale College. So very excited to have them on talking football a little bit later here. And before we get started, we'd just like to add, we are all healthy for once. The COVID bug has gone away from myself and Brett. Kory, apparently the boosted crappiness has worn off. How you guys feeling tonight? How you guys doing? You ready to go?
Yeah, the booster, I wasn't too bad. It only took like one day, and I was just tired, and that was about it. So I'm tired because I'm old, but I'm good, ready to go.
See.
I'm
feeling absolutely great. Back in the saddle, back in my basement. Haven't been here in 3 weeks of podcast due to a trip.
Oh, that's right.
A quarantine at a cottage, and now I'm back home. So it's good to be back, feeling good. No place I'd rather be.
And 2 weeks ago, you were in an airport in Minneapolis.
I don't see a
for
saddle.
Kirk Cousins.
Looking for Kirk Cousins.
Bend over, I'll show you.
All right, we're going to jump into this here, episode 9, talking everything football in the state of Michigan from the last week. Unfortunately, with every team done at this point from the state of Michigan, as we get into the offseason here, as we mentioned last week, going to be more going to news for college football. Some of the teams from the state, Lions, high school, as it comes up here and there. And we're also, like this episode, going to start bringing on more guests when it's appropriate to kind of discuss some football topics. So the first thing we'd like to discuss here is some news from our 2 Big Ten teams here in the state of Michigan. We'll start off with University of Michigan Wolverines. Hired a new D-line coach, Mike Elson, former Notre Dame, since Cincinnati coach as well. Coached almost 20 years with Brian Kelly. Pretty impressive tenure there. How you guys feeling about this guy coming to Michigan?
I can take it.
Yeah,
I'll kick it off. I'm pretty excited about it. Notre Dame typically has a very stout defensive line unit. Like just about every year or two, they have a guy that goes in the top 2-3 rounds of the draft, especially interior D line, which being a D tackle and getting drafted in the top 3 rounds is a pretty big feat. It seems like most of the interior D line guys are more jacks to get to the NFL, and they're typically drafted in the later rounds. But he was at Notre Dame for a long time, Kelly's entire tenure. I think that had to be at least a decade. I think Kelly started around 2010 or so. He probably saw, Kelly went to LSU. He had an opportunity to go to follow him there to coach the D-line, and he turned it down. He's a Midwest guy. He played at Michigan, so he's returning home. He was the interim DC for the Notre Dame bowl game, and I think in a way that was almost a job interview to see if he was going to be capable of, taking the defensive coordinator job at Notre Dame, since their old DC is now the head coach. And seeing that Notre Dame wanted to go a different route. So I think it's a great hire. And I also think it's a very indication that Harbaugh's getting back too. I don't think a guy like Mike Elson would come to Michigan if he didn't know who his boss was going to be. And I'm sure he's going to get paid well. I know that was one of the things that Harbaugh wanted to come back, was an increased pool of money to pay his assistant. So I'm excited for it.
Yeah, no, I second Brett. I think he's going to be a better recruiter than Sean Nua. I think he's already been a better recruiter than Sean Nua. Michigan guy, played at Michigan. It's definitely a promising hire, and I think, you know, if you look at the Michigan schedule, it's not like they're going to be a 5-star team. I think they're going to be a 6-7 star team. So I think it's a great hire, and I think it's a good hire. Michigan guy, played at Michigan. It's definitely a promising hire, and I think, it almost like guarantees Harbaugh's coming back and with some sort of money that they just haven't announced yet. Especially considering this guy's been a coach for Notre Dame for 20 years. So you got to kind of throw him the bag to get him to leave. Another thing that I like is that he's coming from Notre Dame, where you have to kind of recruit based on the requirements of the university. And I would say Notre Dame's requirements are probably even a little steeper than Michigan's. So that's another good thing. He knows the type of kid he's recruiting, what he has to deal with, how he has to deal with it. So no, I think it's a really good fit. I'm excited.
Yeah, that's a good point about the recruiting piece. And he's not only recruiting a certain athlete, but a certain student too. And Notre Dame tends to recruit on a national level. I'm sure he's got some ends at high schools that Michigan coaches currently don't have ends at. Because he's not an old guy. He played for Michigan in the 90s, mid-90s. So he's probably in his 40s, but he's still probably one of the oldest guys on the young Michigan staff right now.
Moving on here to some news for Michigan State. Michigan, that's really the only major coaching. Obviously, there's been some things with Jim Harbaugh. We've mentioned, I think, the last two episodes, at least last week, how there's lots of rumors surrounding Jim Harbaugh. But as we've mentioned on the podcast, we don't think he's going anywhere. So that's really the only major news right now with Michigan staff. Michigan State has had several kind of noteworthy things in the news with their staff. One thing right off the bat here is hiring a new running backs coach after their running backs coach left to Florida to be the new tight ends coach down there. So interesting that they lost him, and they brought they promoted a guy they had that was their offensive analyst for the past season. They promoted him to the running backs coach, and reportedly originally took a job, was going to leave Michigan State to go to Georgia State. Before being offered, must have been this promotion at that point, and just decided to stay. So I don't know. That's very interesting. The guy's name is Ephraim Reed. I don't really know a lot about him. I haven't paid too much attention to him. Apparently he played at Louisiana when he was still in his playing career. He's young. Same age as Brett and I, 29 years old. So kind of like you were just talking about Michigan's young staff. I know that Tucker also has some young coaches in his staff over here at Michigan State as well. So that's not ever a bad thing. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of pans out. Kind of the bigger news right now in Michigan State is they just lost their D-line coach, Rob Burton, who had been there since the D'Antonio era. He had been there for a while, 9 years. So he was with D'Antonio for quite a bit of time. Brett threw in a fun fact in our notes here that he actually began his coaching career at Grand Valley back in 2002. So he'd been with Michigan State pretty quickly after leaving Grand Valley. So too bad losing Coach Burton. But I'm sure Mel will reload. It sounds like they already got a guy in Brandon Jordan is their new hire for that position. So be interesting to see how that works out. So I don't know if you guys have anything you want to add on this. I really don't have a lot of opinions on it. I never really know in these situations what to think. Obviously, a lot of these programs reload there's tons of talented coaches out there. Michigan State had a pretty talented D-line, as bad as their defensive backfield was this past year. They had a pretty good D-line. I think you probably got to credit Rob Burton, especially with some of the upperclassmen D-line they were playing very well. So be interesting to see how they reload from a coaching standpoint there at D-line with this new coach, Brandon Jordan. So
Michigan State also lost their DB's coach. So
but that was one where people were like, well, maybe that's a good thing. I don't know.
I don't know who it was or when he got there, but he's gone too.
Yeah, I think that was a couple of weeks ago. We might have mentioned the podcast. I don't remember. But one thing I find interesting, it's a trend among both college and NFL, is the will to hire young coaches. It seems like there's young coaches being promoted everywhere, which never used to be like back in the day. Somebody had a trajectory to like he was a defensive line coach for years, and then he might be promoted to DC when he's 50 and maybe head coach around 60. That day is gone. Guys, the trend is young coaches, and I think it's good for the sport. It's good to see some young coaches, some new big names. I think the good older coaches will always be around, but it's interesting to see this trend with the young coaches is kind of where I was trying to get at.
The regurgitation factor has slowed down, which is good. And there's actually been people that have been posting a lot on social media of like, stop giving these. It happens a lot in the NFL, actually. A lot of these NFL guys like in and out, like just like, you know what I mean? They get fired at one spot, they pop up in another spot. So I agree. Just to keep it moving, Michigan State also hired a D-line pass rush like specialist, Brandon Jordan. Played a little bit of pro ball, worked with some huge names, TJ Watt, Cameron Hayward, Max Crosby. The list is like never ending. We were actually chuckling about it in the pre-show because he's apparently coached like the top 20 defensive linemen in the NFL. So kind of interesting right there. I mean, if the guy comes in and is the real deal, then he's the real deal. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think this is something I just mentioned a little bit, but just to kind of reiterate, it's just kind of an interesting situation for Mel because their problem wasn't at the D line. Obviously, Ron Burton's kind of spoken for, but it sounds like they're bringing in a pretty talented coach too. It's really the defensive backfield that they need to bring in some better recruits and a better coach. But sorry, Brett, you're going to add something there.
Yeah, I was just while we were talking about the D line, I'm sure it hit social media like crazy. They had one of their ex-alum in the news once again, not for good reasons.
The assault charges.
Oh, Malik McDowell. Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, yeah. He was. Did you see the video? He was arrested and he was naked.
I saw that he was charged with indecent exposure. I saw that, so I don't know what was going on with that.
I bet he got a big dick though.
About 100.
Oh man,
he was trying to sneak into like I don't know some kids camp or something. I didn't
naked?
read.
What the fuck?
Trying to sneak in naked?
Like kids camp.
That's what the rumors are. I mean, the guy's he's been arrested probably.
We got to fix this to Mike. He is
more times than I've had in my lifetime. That's a bad comparison. I couldn't think of anything funny, but
you keep cutting in and out.
You know, a guy like that is clearly ill in the head, and I hope he gets the help he needs.
All right.
All right. Another news.
Well, just the last thing to keep things moving here. The last thing with Michigan State is recently, I think it was today, announced that they landed a transfer from Georgia, Amir Speed. Interesting last name. 3-star recruit out of Florida. So it'll be interesting to see if he plays right away. Big cornerback, 6'3", over 200 pounds. So
he's from Georgia. He's a transfer.
Yeah, I just said that.
Yeah. Oh, I cut out.
So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Michigan State's brought in, as we mentioned in a previous episode, quite a few transfers and some guys from around the country here that different talent at defensive backfield. So hopefully that transfers right away. All right, moving on here to the NFL. Just
real quick.
Oh.
The interesting part about Amir Speed coming to Michigan State is that during his high school recruitment, Michigan State was number 2 of his schools. He ended up going to Georgia, but he went to Georgia to play for Mel Tucker. He was his recruiter at Georgia at the time. So that was an interesting connection that brought him back to Michigan State. And he started a couple games for Georgia this year, and we all know how good Georgia's defense was. So I think it's a good pull for Michigan State. I don't know if he's going to be a game changer, but he's going to have the championship experience, and he's got the size to be a difference maker on the outside against some bigger receivers in the Big Ten.
Yeah, as a Michigan State fan, hopefully it pans out. See where that goes. All right, moving on here to NFL. So the Lions, obviously not in the playoffs, but figured we would mention here some playoff scores, just kind of our reaction to some of these scores. I was kind of disappointed because 4 of these 6 games were blowouts.
That's why you don't expand the playoffs.
We're going to compare NFL to college. So the Buccaneers game, that was a closer score than it really should have. I think it was like 31-0, and the Eagles scored 15 unanswered. Otherwise, 4 of these games were blowouts. The only 2 that were good games was the 49ers Cowboys and the Bengals Raiders, both 1-score games. Those were both fun ones to watch. Otherwise, the rest of them really not that exciting. Any takeaways for you guys from the playoffs?
What are your thoughts on the Dak Prescott play? Personally,
oh yeah,
I don't think it's that, like, what he did was not that egregious. It was misplayed because it obviously didn't work, but it was not that egregious. Also, what the refs did doesn't screw. I don't think it was it wasn't a bad job by the officiating. My issue comes from the NFL. Their game stoppage rules are just so wonky. He was down with 7 seconds left and the clock ran out.
I don't like how
You're
they
supposed
don't
to give the ball to the ref, though.
I get that,
Yeah,
but
it
it's
is a
still
rule.
he was down with 7 seconds left.
I just don't really like. I've never really liked how the NFL doesn't stop the clock when you get a
Exactly.
first down. Because it to me it makes sense to stop the clock. You got to reset the change. You got to reset the ball. I mean,
Yes,
at every other
exactly.
level, it stops for just momentarily, just long enough for them to get things set back up, and then the clock starts running again. I've never understood
I don't
why
get it
the
either. It's
NFL chooses not to keep that rule from the other levels of football. I don't know if it's like they're thinking it's making the game harder, but it's like you're making it harder in the most trivial way because you're making it more challenging for the refs to do their job. And then they're going to get criticized in situations like this. If the clock just stopped, there would be no problem because it wouldn't have started again until the ref set the ball.
First thing I did when he started sliding, I go, holy shit, there's 9 seconds left. They're going to get off another play. And then it was just like 8, 7. And then when they got to the ball and it was like 2, I was like, no, it's done.
Yeah, you're like, they're not going to get a playoff. Especially when the center went to like come up to it and you're like, oh, the ref's got to place that ball. He can't just snap it. You're like, this is they're done. I mean, this is over.
Reminded me of Jay Gray in 2008 when he spiked the ball. And he just, our center in high school, picked it up and threw it at the ground. What the fuck are you doing?
One of the best parts was the ref like went to go move the ball and the center just grabbed it and put it right back where
which is technically illegal, but I don't know. Sorry,
I saw it on Twitter. I can't take credit for it. Ant Wright posted it, and I think everyone pretty much right as at this point. But it was so true. The NFC East is the Big Ten West. They'll have some good teams, and they just go to the playoffs and they just flop on their face. And I love every second of it. I don't feel bad for the Cowboy fans at all because they're probably Duke basketball fans. They're probably New York Yankees fans.
You got
Lakers
that
fans
too.
Yeah, that's been an ongoing joke for years, though.
What's been an ongoing joke?
That Dallas Cowboy fans aren't like Dallas sport fans. They're just like popular teams in the United States.
Yeah, that's true.
Which
is so weird.
Lakers.
Why? I've never understood why Dallas is America's team. Is it because their mascot, because they're the Cowboys? They really haven't it's not like they're the most successful franchise. I've never really understood that.
They have a pretty strong history, and they've always seemed to have.
They're not even an original team, though. They're an
coaching.
expansion in the 60s?
Well, it's probably because all the dimwits across America that, like every other team, are Cowboy fans. Like I have a cousin that's a Cowboy, lives in Grand Rapids. It's like, why? Why are you a Cowboy?
Is he a dimwit?
But his rooting interests are just ridiculous.
Would you
It's
call
America's
your cousin
team.
a
It's
dimwit?
America's team because all the Latino fans come in, and then they're just like, I don't know. It's the American dream. The Cowboys.
I can think of a lot of. I think I would rather be a Lions fan and root for my home state team.
I'm right there with you, Bart. I'm right there with you. The last thing we definitely got to add before we mention some Lions news here, the Bengals ended their playoff drought. They had the longest NFL playoff drought in terms of a postseason win. They hadn't won since 1991. It was either 1 or 2 years before the Lions. It was like 1 or 2 years longer than the Lions drought. So now the Lions officially own longest. Yeah, officially own the. I think they own the longest drought in all of postseason professional men's sports, North American professional men's sports, with that win by the Bengals. So, yeah, unfortunate for the Lions, but the misery continues. Let's move on here with some Lions news before we get to our guest.
Matt Stafford with the playoff win.
Shoot. That. Oh my God. How did I forget that? Yeah, no, Brett, I'm sorry. You're right. I almost forgot some other big news. Matt Stafford winning his first playoff game. The Twitter debate has been raging for a while now that the Lions were not the
blowout
problem.
fashion.
That Matt Stafford was the problem, and now it's official. The Lions are the problem. Matt Stafford is a very talented quarterback, as many faithful Lions fans have always said. I've always said that Stafford is a very talented quarterback. First time he plays with another team, wins the division, wins a playoff game. Good for him, man. I watched that whole game from start to finish just because I wanted to see that guy get a win finally.
OBJ first playoff win as well.
And OBJ's first playoff win, yeah.
Very good game for OBJ too. Hell yeah.
Well, some before we wrap things up here and get to our guests, some news with the Lions. The coaching staff is currently coaching the Reese's Senior Bowl, which is the two worst teams in the NFL. Their staff coaches this game. Brett had this in our notes. Brett, I'm not aware of this. Can you talk about this? This is news to me.
Every single year, the two worst teams in the NFL, because they're not playing right now, obviously, they get to go down coach the Senior Bowl. I don't know if they send the head coaches, but most of the staff, they go down there. So the Jaguars are coaching one team, the Lions are coaching another team. It gives them a chance to much they're down there just recruiting for their own teams I think is kind of cool and pretty neat, especially for a lot of those players. They're already getting firsthand experience being coached by an NFL staff. I think it makes the Senior Bowl more interesting. Not that the Senior Bowl isn't interesting, but it's a nice just little game that they add. I think it's neat that the NFL partners with them.
We fired Anthony Lynn as well. That is some fresh news. So the offensive coordinator for 1 year, who I actually said was the first half of the year MVP for the Lions, got fired. And then Coach Dan Campbell took over the reins, and Jared Goff didn't suck anymore. So
we suck again.
Hey, Jared Goff finished in like the top 10 in the NFL and a bunch.
He did have an impressive end to his season. Good for him.
I really hope the Lions don't lose their DC, Aaron Glenn. He interviewed for the Denver job. I don't think he'll get it. But he's definitely
he'll be with us one more year.
Yeah, I think he'll definitely be getting some interviews elsewhere, especially with the Rooney Rule too. That alone will get him a couple interviews. So.
Well, with that, I think this is about time to transition to our guests for the next portion of the podcast. We have Mr. Chance Stewart and Uday Singh, former teammates of mine and current high school coaches here in the state of Michigan, coming on to talk a pretty hot topic. We're going to talk a few things with them, but the primary topic is public versus private high school. Going to kind of debate and discuss that with them a little bit. So hope you enjoy the conversation. All right, we're moving into the second portion of the podcast here with our guests. For the first time, we got two guests on instead of one. We have Uday Singh and Chance Stewart, former teammates of mine at Hillsdale College. Uday is a 2015 Plymouth Salem grad, was an O-line, D-line standout there before playing D-line at Hillsdale from 2015 to 2018. Followed that up coaching at Hillsdale High School in 2019, helped them to an 11-1 regional finalist that season. He's currently the D-line coach and defensive coordinator at Cranbrook Kingswood. And doing a great job, right? And we got Chance Stewart as well. Sturgis High School grad, 4-star quarterback out of Sturgis. Went to Western Michigan to start, then came over to the great Hillsdale College in 2015, played quarterback there for 4 years, 4-year starter. In his final season, Harlan Hill finalist, All-American, GMAC Player of the Year, numerous school records, and now he's back at his alma mater, Sturgis High, as the varsity head coach. And both of these guys are 2018 GMAC champs, part of only the second team in Hillsdale history to win a playoff game. Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Good, man.
Elaborate. Come on. How are you guys doing?
Uday, you're a man of many words, man. I was expecting you to take that and run with it a little bit.
I was expecting you to talk, man. Your list was way longer than mine. We got a 4-star QB on the pod today, bud.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. A long, long time ago. Vince, no, I appreciate you having me on. This is fun. Anytime we get to talk football, this is a lot of fun. So look forward to it tonight.
Yeah, Vince, you're
Absolutely.
welcome for having me on.
That's the humor we love right there.
I'm always ready to talk football, especially with former teammates. So this is very exciting. And actually, we were just joking before we started here. Brett has 2 younger brothers who played at Yale, and the youngest, Cole, just finished up at Hillsdale. These guys were actually teammates for a couple seasons with Cole Johnson as well. So a few connections here with the Grand Ledge guys. So to kind of kick this off here, we just kind of want to talk to you guys about your coaching paths here. So we can start with Uday here. Uday, you're at Cranbrook Kingswood, man. Did you kind of see yourself when you're finishing up at Hillsdale? Were you always kind of planning on coaching? Or, how did this kind of turn out?
So what happened was, my real job, I'm a tax accountant, so like CPA. So what it ended up happening was I decided I was going to try and graduate, and you need 150 credits after you're done to it's one of your requirements for the CPA. So I went back to Hillsdale for another semester, and I wanted to be involved in football, but I'd already done like the banquet and everything. So I was pretty much like, you can't come back from that. Ended up talking to Coach Otterbein, and it happened that Hillsdale High needed a defensive line coach for their JV team. Things kind of got weird from there. Like their varsity coach couldn't coach that season. So I ended up getting the varsity job. Next thing I know, it's Hillsdale College's senior banquet, and Ben Jones, who was a former teammate of yours, I believe, was there for Nate. It happened that I was moving to Detroit, and I knew that at the time, and Ben was looking for a D-line coach in Detroit. So I believe the way it went was he got a picture and sat down, and we looked at each other, and he said, I heard you're looking for a job in Detroit. And I told him, I heard you're looking for a D-line coach. So it was I got the job like that.
Nice.
So
they say it's who you know, not what you know, right?
Exactly.
How about you, Chance? Back at your alma mater, man. Pretty much the year after you were done at Hillsdale, right? I know you were an assistant for a season before you got the head coaching job.
Yeah, so I came back. I was living at home, was getting ready for my pro day. Kind of wanted to live that dream out as long as possible. Knew that if that ever did come to an end, which it ended pretty quickly for me, that it would have been tough to kind of walk away from football and not have anything going on in the fall. That starting in May, I started working for my dad. We own a sporting goods store here. I knew I was going to be on the road from there, but I was like, I need some sort of football fix here, because just completely disappearing from it was going to be a tough fall. Luckily for me, the head coach at that time was the OC for my 8th grade year, and then all the way through my junior year of high school. And then he actually got the job my senior year. So extremely close with the head coach that year. Was lucky enough to come on and be a quarterbacks coach. We ran the veer that year, so I don't know really how much help I actually was, because it was a system I've never been a part of.
Yeah, we don't run that kind of stuff at Hillsdale.
Yeah, exactly. And I wanted to kind of throw the football over the place, and instead we're running inside veer. So it was a little different, but learned a lot that year. Had a lot of fun. I think after that year, I pretty much knew that I wanted to be in coaching at some point. Had no idea that Coach Lamb was then going to take a principal job in the district, and was going to have to give up the head job. And then all of a sudden, it came into motion. Applied, wasn't quite sure what my chances were. And then ended up getting the call from the AD that I got the job, and pretty crazy that I'm getting ready for year 3 here. So it's been a lot, but I'll tell you what, it's been exciting, and I've loved every moment of it.
Did you ever expect at 24? Were you 24 when you got the job?
I was 24. So 24, dealing with COVID, dealing with parents, dealing with all that. That was a very eventful year, to say the least. We kind of joked a lot about this past year. It was like, man, it was nice to finally just have to worry about football, to an extent. That first year was just such a it was just a mess in general because you never knew,
Yeah.
you didn't know if we were playing. I remember when I got the email from our athletic director saying, "Hey, I'm sorry, your season just got canceled." We were out on the practice field getting warmed up.
Yep. So were we.
I'm sitting there as a 24-year-old saying, how am I going to go tell these seniors that they're never going to play again? I was like, holy smokes. And, luckily for us, a few weeks later, our season came back, got to have some sort of a season. But yeah, no, we learned a lot that year. I'll tell you that I learned a lot that year, just me personally as a man, but also kind of, what direction I kind of wanted to take the program and where we were going to be headed.
Yeah, I didn't even, till you just brought that up, I didn't even stop to think about the fact that you got the job in the summer going into that COVID season in 2020 there. And what a tumultuous season that was with, I don't know, you guys probably remember this. At one point they were talking about going to the spring, playing a football season in the spring, whether we would have a season. I mean, it was messy. It was a mess. Oh, it was an absolute mess. So Uday, Cranbrook, Kingswood, how'd you guys finish up this year? How you feeling about going into next season?
We're feeling pretty good. We finished 3-6. It wasn't quite the season we'd hoped. Brand new head coach. We had a brand new offense put in. I was my first year as a defensive coordinator, put in a brand new defense, so a lot of adjusting on the fly. Hoping for a good season next year. We only graduated 6 guys, so we're only losing 2 starters on each side of the ball. So we'll have a lot of guys that have had a lot of varsity experience next season. So hopefully that can translate into some wins, but it's all about, sticking to the process. And that's sort of what we're trying to get started, get the culture going into year 2 of this program.
How you feeling being the DC, man?
It was so when I first sort of got it, being a D-line guy, like, you kind of feel good about the run game, but when it comes to pass game, it's just so much to learn about, like, especially because we play like a match style defense where we're splitting the field. So just to learn the different tools, I feel like it took till week 7 to sort of understand, like, all right, I know I can use this tool here, and sort of get a comfortability with that. But yeah, dude, so funny story. Week 1, we were playing Clarenceville. They're kind of a double wing team, like old school, and they'll go tackle over things like that. But we had seen some of their scrimmage film, and they were lining up in a lot of gun sets and stuff. And I was like, all right, like, I'm comfortable with this. They come out first play, they went tackle over into the boundary, and we were running a 4-2-5, and I'd never gone over how to adjust to it. So they were just hammering us into the boundary, and I got no answers. I'm like, I'm going to get fired after today. I don't know what's going on.
You're going to get fired by the second quarter.
Exactly.
It's funny that you say that because everything you're saying, Kory, you could tell me I'm right or wrong, but I feel like, Kory, you had a similar situation with us at Grand Ledge because Kory's not coaching currently, moved to Grand Rapids, but we coached for a few years here at Grand Ledge, and he coached D-line and had that kind of same experience trying to learn, the defensive backfield and pass coverages and things like that.
I coached D-line for 3 years, so I had no idea about anything in the secondary. I was an offensive lineman at Northwood. My whole career, played center guard. And then I get moved to OC my last year for the JV team. And then it's like, now I'm trying to pass the ball, but it's like, I was a D-line coach for 3 years. Now I'm trying to figure out how to run pass plays, like run formations. And I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Makes you well-rounded, man.
Yeah.
Chance, how about you? How'd your season finish out? How you guys feeling about going into next year?
Yeah, so we finished 3-6. We lost 2 games in the last 10 seconds. They were brutal, heartbreakers. We had 14 of our 22 starters were sophomores, probably the only team in the country that had that.
Holy shit.
So we were extremely young. We returned 19 of 22 positions, which is outstanding. We returned the conference player of the year in one of our running backs, DBs. So the fact that we were 3-6 and still had the player of the year is just kind of speaks levels to how talented this kid is. And now it's really up to me to utilize him a lot better than I probably did this year. So that's the fun part.
Man, you're learning. You're learning.
Oh, absolutely. 100%. But no, I'm excited. I think if there's going to be a year where we can make some noise, it's going to be this year. with this group. We took some bumps and bruises last year, but we knew that going in. It's tough when you're asking, 14, 15-year-olds to go out there on a Friday night, especially with some of the teams that we play. Edwardsburg is
very good.
Shoot, they're in the semis, it seems like every year.
Yep.
They run through our conference, every year. So it's just, when you're kind of going against things like that, you get your bumps and bruises, but, credit to our kids. They battled all year, and, few plays here, a few less slips here and there. We were easily a 5-4 football team last year. So looking forward to it. Off season's been great. Kids have really bought in. We're on week 3 right now of our off season training program. So that's been really exciting, and, we'll just keep chugging along. So
sounds like with all those sophomores, you got 2 big time seasons coming up. You get 2 more years with that group. That's crazy.
Yep, absolutely. So it'll be, that's kind of how high school football works. I've learned you kind of have to ride your waves, especially when you're in certain communities. And, we got a wave coming up here that's going to be really fun.
Yeah, we're gonna get into how that works a little bit later here, the public versus private conversation. Look, Brett, I'm sure is chomping at the bit for that one. Brett has some words of choice for this private public conversation. Uday, how about you guys? Oh, sorry, do you want to add something there?
Yeah, I was just going to say real quick before you ask Uday his questions, maybe if you could talk briefly about where in Michigan your school is located and maybe what division you play in, just for the listeners to get an idea. So maybe Chance, if you could maybe touch on what conference you play in, where Sturgis is in Michigan, and what division you are in the playoffs, and then Uday can pick up after Vince asks his questions.
Yep. So Sturgis, we are Division III. We play in the Wolverine Conference. And we are literally the last town at the bottom of the state before you hit Indiana border. So right next door to us is the toll road in Indiana. So we are at the very bottom. We've been competing in the Wolverines since 2015, and we're Division III.
Yeah, because you guys used to play in the same conference as Mattawan and Coldwater and some of those Battle Creek schools at one time, correct?
Yep. So when I was in school, my senior year was our last year in the SMAC. So, we were Coldwater, Marshall, Harper Creek, all that stuff. So
that's a pretty competitive conference. There's some teams in that conference that they usually have 2 or even 3 or 4 teams making the playoffs every year.
You have Lakeshore, St. Joe, normally a Portage Northern or Portage Central is putting out. Coldwater as of lately has been much better at football. I think actually you guys play them.
We did for the first time, had a non-conference game with them this past year. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So they're, that was a really good conference. And then, but I think it was smart for us to get out at the time. I think kind of the talent was shifting, and we went to the Wolverine, which has been much better for us the last few years. But, it'll be kind of curious to see what happens with the Wolverine. Now we just lost another school with Dwajek moving out. Now we're getting smaller. Now we're a conference of 7. It'll be really curious to see kind of what happens with us, and where we kind of move. So,
Uday, how about you, man? Want to talk a little bit about Cranbrook Kingswood?
Yeah, man. So probably the place people know Cranbrook the most from, if you've ever seen 8 Mile, you went to Cranbrook, dog. That's a private school. Get a lot of that. So
you texted me that the other day, and I haven't seen that movie in a long time. I forgot about that reference.
Yeah, man. He asked me if Cranbrook was private, and I was like, "You've never seen 8 Mile?"
It's been a while.
So, but we're located in Bloomfield Hills, so pretty nice. We are Division IV team, and we compete in the Catholic League. But the way the Catholic League works is split into 4 divisions. And, obviously the top is your teams like CC, Brother Rice, De La Salle, those kind of teams that are always competing for state titles. The second group, it's 3 teams right now, but like U of D, Loyola, and Divine Child. And then our division is like us, Bishop Foley, teams like that. And then there's another one below us, which is more like D6, D7 kind of teams. So that's where you get Everest Collegiate and Our Lady of the Lakes, teams like that. But, it's a very competitive conference. They take football very seriously in the Catholic League. So it's super fun. You got to be on your A game.
All three of us played with a lot of those guys at Hillsdale. We had a lot of Catholic dudes.
Bunch of weirdos.
They could drink, man. Those guys can drink.
So much built up testosterone from hanging out with a bunch of dudes all the time.
Exactly.
They almost all joined the frats, and they were running those parties. That's for sure. Uday, how's the off season going so far for you guys?
Off season's going pretty good, man. I actually, because of all the COVID stuff, I hadn't seen our weight room till like this after the football season, pretty much. And like we have like D3 facilities. It's really nice in there. They've got a guy, his name's John Tenuta. He's their trainer right now. He's not technically like a school guy, but he works with the school. So they're doing a great job right now. Turnout's pretty good. So hopefully they can translate onto the football field this summer.
So kind of moving on here a little bit, unless Kory, Brett, you want to chime in. I was going to kind of move into the playoff discussion here, unless you guys want to add anything else.
I'm good.
So let's kind of move on here. We've already mentioned a little bit playoffs and things like that. We wanted to kind of obviously, it could be a debate style, but it doesn't matter if we agree or not. It's all good. Myself coaching at a public school, Chance coaches at a public school, Uday played at a public school, now coaching at a private school. So there's some conversations that we've had in previous episodes here on our podcast, is the idea of a playoff format in the state of Michigan that revolves around public versus private. Obviously, there's been a recent change in the playoff format in the 2020 season. For the first time in state history, every team got in unless they opted out due to the goofy schedules and all the cancellations. They just said to not have to worry about scheduling, everyone's in. From 1999 until 29 through the 2019 season, it was 6 wins and you're in. And then there was a few 5 and 4 at-large bids based on points that filled out the rest of the playoffs. This year, so in the 2021 season, if you're listening and you're not sure what's going on now, this was supposed to start in 2020, but they delayed it to this season due to COVID. And how it works now is it's strictly playoff points. Your wins do not matter in terms of hitting a threshold to make the playoffs. It's 6. There was actually controversially 7 to 10 teams that won 6 games, something like that. Maybe not quite that many, but there was 5 or 6 at least that did not make the playoffs this year in the state of Michigan that won 6 games. I believe every team that won 7 or more games, regardless of division, got in. And the teams that won 6 games that didn't get in, I think were like D4 and lower. So if you won 6 games and you were D1, 2, or 3, you got in. Now, the other thing that was controversial was there was losing teams that got in. You had some 4 and 5 teams that got in. There was even Flint Powers Catholic, who I think was 2 and 7 in Division 5, got in. Yeah, due to their conference where they play almost strictly D1 and D2 schools, and they're like D5, they had a ridiculous amount of playoff points. So I don't know if you guys want to first kind of touch on the current playoff format. Chance, if you want to kick us off, what are your thoughts here on this new playoff format?
Yeah, I mean, I think as a player, it was always cool in high school. Before the season, the first thing you do, you look at your schedule. Where am I going to get my 6 wins?
That's true.
You looked and said, okay, you're going to circle. This game has to be a win. If he. I remember doing it every single year. That's how it was done.
Yep.
So I mean, and then the 2. Let's see. We made it one year at 5 and 4, and then the other year we were 7 and 2. But I remember the 7 and 2 year when we hit 6. Like that was a big deal, and that locker room after was a lot of fun, and that was just a big deal to us, a big deal to our community because I think Sturgis is. Shoot, we haven't won a playoff game since 2004. We've had 5 playoff wins since 2000. So winning in the playoffs has not been a thing in Sturgis. Getting in the playoffs has not been a thing in Sturgis. So the fact that, in 2011 when we did make it, that was a big deal. And then, of course, my first year coaching, all of a sudden it didn't matter. You could go 0-6 and you still made the playoffs, in which our kids, we celebrated it like a big deal. We won some games that year. but it was a little different feeling because everybody got in. So it was interesting. Now it benefited us that year because we lost our quarterback the first quarter of the second game. He ended up coming back and probably could have played our last game, but then we looked and said, is it worth bringing him back? We're already in the playoffs. Let's let him sit another game and then we'll go into the playoffs. So it was a unique kind of conversation there. I think eventually the state is going to go to week 9, just being that pre-district. Your schedule will be 8 games. Everybody will be in. If you want to opt out, you'll opt out. And, playoffs will be 6 rounds. I think it makes the most sense. I think it'll make life a lot easier at the MHSAA. I mean, I just think of all the calculating they have to do now with everything. I just think it'd be a lot easier and simpler and just simplify a lot of things. You just have your region or your district and say, hey, now we just sort out, okay, you're the 1, you're the 6, however it looks. But I think it would simplify a lot of things.
My only argument is, and we ran into this at Grand Ledge, that team you play, if they do the playoff format that way, who'd we play, Vince? That was just the worst football team I've ever seen on the football field before. We
played Kalamazoo Loy Norix, who hadn't won a game in 3 years.
Who? And it's just but it's 60, sad.
We tied a school record. We put up 63 points on them. We had 21 points in 5 minutes to start the game. It was unbelievable. I was staying there on the sideline, trying to keep the kids excited, but they were visibly losing excitement quickly because this team is I don't want to disparage Loy Norix, but they were not good. They were not a very good football team.
They suck, Vince. Stop.
Yeah. Quarterback was a baller, but everything else was a struggle.
Yeah.
Uday, you want to kind of chime in? Any thoughts on playoff formats here?
Yeah, man. I agree with Chance in the sense that I think they're just eventually, to make it easier, just going to say, hey, you know what? Everybody's in. The regular season's just going to be for seeding. But I do like the way playoff points work in the sense that they reward teams that are willing to take on better opponents. Mm-hmm. So that example you gave of Flint Powers, I don't know how they fared in the playoffs, but if you're playing D1 and D2 teams and you're 2-7, there's still a pretty realistic chance that you'll be competitive at the D5 level. It's just because of the league you're in, that's kind of who you get. So do those kids not deserve a chance because they, took that leap and tried to play up? I don't know if that's fair. And then you see the example of, I remember Oak Park that COVID year came in with 0 wins, but they're playing teams like West Bloomfield, Clark.
They went to the semifinals. They didn't have a single win and went all the way to the semis.
But to be fair, they also had 2 state commits at the time, so that kind of helps a little bit.
Well, and I remember it was reported that Oak Park had several big time players who were out at the beginning of the year due to injuries. One kid, I think, was academically ineligible or something and then got eligible or something. So they had several kids out and it kind of contributed to their rough start. And then they just got hot in the playoffs. Yeah. It's kind of crazy.
So I think Uday, though, I would say the one thing on the opposite side though of that is we have a lot of small Division 7, Division 8 schools in our area. Centerville, who's they won state the COVID year. White Pigeons always in the playoffs. Mendon, before they went 8-man, they've won more state titles than I don't know anybody. Yeah. They've won. The thing with them now is and I'm good friends with both their coaches. They can't find people who want to play them. They're a Division 8 school, but no Division 8 school wants to play them because they're head and shoulders above them. Yep. Well, then no Division 7 or 6 or 5 school wants to play them because it's pointless for them because they get, though I don't know the breakdown of what they get point wise. I'm sure it's not a ton, but when you start scheduling schools that are smaller than you.
Yeah.
So, I know that's why, even Constantine this past year, I think they're D6. They had to go to Indiana to get a game because it was tough to find somebody to play them. And I think when you set that standard of, every year, it seems like you're in the district finals or you're in the, you're winning 10, 11 games. The playoff points is it's only going to get harder for you to actually schedule games and complete that schedule with not having to go, no high school kid. And I don't know, maybe it's different over there, but driving 2.5 hours for a football game on a Friday night in a bus there and then coming back another 2.5. That's tough asking for a 15, 16-year-old kid to do. But, there's a lot of small town football around me. I grew up.
PW is a good example.
Yeah, we're on the west side of Lansing, and Grand Ledge is one of only 2 Division I schools in the entire Mid-Michigan area. Us and Holt are the only 2 D1 schools. So when we make the playoffs, we have to go to Grand Rapids and play Rockford, East Kentwood, Hudsonville, Granville, because there's no other, or we play Holt. We've played Holt like 3 or 4 times in the playoffs. There's no one else around us. But going back to, you were talking about what you were kind of getting to, Chance, is the multipliers. So essentially how the playoffs work now is you get points for winning, and then you get more points for your opponent's wins. And then you get multipliers depending on their division, their school size. And the multipliers are actually broken up into 4 classes. So if you play a D1, D2 school, it's the same multiplier. D3, 4, same multiplier. 5, 6, same multiplier. 7, 8, same multiplier. So like for us this year, DeWitt, who is dominant in the area, they're in our conference. They're Division 3. So beating them would be helpful, but losing to them, which we did, kind of hurts us, because you still get the multiplier even if you lose to the team. That's how Flint Powers Catholic got in with so many losses, is because you still get those points for that team's wins. The problem is for us losing to a Division 3 school, it's not as many points as if we played a D1, D2 school. And I think that's kind of what you're getting into there, is you got teams who are not really willing. Before, teams wanted to just, we don't care who we're going to play. We get 6 wins, we're in, right? Or 5 wins with a tough conference schedule we're in, or tough schedule we're in. Now it's like our team's going to struggle to schedule, outside of their class, outside of the 2 division grouping that they're in, because of the multipliers. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see going forward as people kind of scheme their schedules, to try and make sure they're getting in the playoffs.
And that's why I brought up PW. I mean, who wants to play PW? What are they, D7? They play LC. They beat LCC. They beat Williamston. They beat
Redford Union, who was like Division 5 or 4.
No,
I think they were 4, right?
They're 4, and they had a home game in the first round against DCD. We played them this year. They were pretty good.
Yeah, and Plum Westphalia crushed them.
Yeah. So, like, who wants to play them? Like, you get nothing, and they're going to beat the shit out of you. And there's like 25 kids on the team, and they're all cousins. So, it's just.
Well, the thing is, they're going to win every game too, so it doesn't matter. They're going to make the playoffs. But my biggest issue with the 6 wins is you just schedule a bunch of easy games and you get in the playoffs. And with the playoff points, you struggle to schedule games at times. And I know that it's run off analytics, and analytics are pretty accurate, but still, a team week 1 is not the same team as they are week 9. So how can you judge a team off of the performance they had in week 1 and how much weight that has in your schedule? I just don't think there's a good way to do it, aside from just letting everybody get in and let the playoffs sort themselves out. It bothers me the way that's how it is. And the only thing that's my solution.
The only thing that I would add, and I think we've talked about this before, is I like the regular season meaning something. Either Chance or Uday said, I think it was Chance, when you let everyone in, basically the regular season is to organize your district or your region, right? If you let everyone in, basically your playoff points would determine your seeding within your district and your region. But I like your regular season, if you do well, rewarding you with a playoff, right? Because there's not a lot of sports in the state of Michigan like that, because baseball, everyone gets in, right? Basketball, everyone gets in. Volleyball, right? Everyone gets in. Yeah. Softball, everyone gets in. So I like the idea that football has this sort of aura around the playoffs. And it used to be even harder. I mean, when the playoffs started in the 70s, for 4 or 5 years, only 4 teams from 4 classes got in. And then it was like 79 or 80, they bumped it to 16. And then until 1999, it was 16, and then they changed it to 32. So now it's a little bit easier. And I think I mentioned this on a previous episode as well. But essentially right now, there's the way they split up the 8 divisions. There's somewhere between 63 and 66 teams per division. So still about half the teams in your division are making the playoffs. right around half. So it's still a lot of teams are getting in. If you think half the teams, I mean, and like Kory mentioned, Loy Norix, who, again, I don't want to keep bringing them up, but they're a good example. They hadn't won a game in 3 years and they're in the playoffs. I mean, they don't really have any business playing in the playoffs. It's just like a tune-up game for us. It was.
What they could do is everyone makes the playoffs, and with basketball for the districts, it's all random. It's a random draw. Like the good team might not get a bye and a bad team could get a bye in the districts. But in football, they could still use playoff points as a metric for seeding, and all the good teams could get a bye. But another thing with football, too, is when you're done playing football for 85% of kids in high school, you're done. You're never going to play football again. And if anything, it gives those kids one extra game to play, whether they're on a good team or a bad team. I mean, there's injuries that happen. It's just another opportunity for the kids to go out and play the sport that they love and that they've trained for their whole life. So I think personally, my opinion would be everyone makes the playoffs and you seed the playoffs based off playoff points with the good teams getting a bye. But I don't see that ever happening.
Brett wants those playoffs to sort himself out, but he doesn't want the college football playoffs to sort themselves out.
College football, you get to choose where you go.
So does that then take us into our private school conversation here?
Deal.
Bring it in.
All right. So do you guys, Uday or Chance, do you guys have anything else you want to add on the playoffs? Otherwise, we can head on to our next topic here. Yeah, so we'll see what happens. I am a big proponent, honestly, of the current format. I really like it. I know a lot of people complained about it this year. I know there was other people who also really loved it, but it'll be interesting to see going forward how long they keep this current format, considering the previous one lasted for 21 seasons. So who knows with this new iteration if it'll last another 2 decades or not. We'll see. So next conversation we kind of want to get into here, one of our final ones before we wrap things up. Chance is a public school coach. I am also a public school coach. Uday played public ball, but now he's coaching with private schools. And we've had a few conversations about the idea of private versus public in the state of Michigan, how there's kind of a big disparity. You saw it at the state championship games this year. I didn't count or add them up. I could probably sit here and off the top of my head try to come up with a number, but I'm guessing it was pretty close to half of the teams participating in those state championship games were private schools. I, again, would have to go check, but I'm pretty sure it was right around there. Chance, if you want to kick us off, what are your kind of thoughts on public school ball versus private school ball? Do you think, we kind of just talking about the playoffs. Do you think like they should have separate postseason tournaments? Is there kind of a disparity or anything unfair between the two school systems?
I mean, since Sturgis has really not been in the playoffs much, it's kind of hard to truly have an opinion on when it comes to playoffs, just because I don't think Sturgis has ever actually played a private school football team before.
I guess that region of the state there's probably not a lot of private schools in the southwestern area of the state.
Like in the middle.
You know what? I lied. No, I lied. I'm sorry. We were in a conference with one. My goodness, that's bad. Lumen Christi. We played Lumen Christi in high school.
Oh, geez. Yeah, they're a powerhouse.
Which I'll tell you what, when we beat them the year that we won the playoffs, that was a big deal, because absolutely they're now we
scrimmaged them, and that talking about big division difference. We're Division 1, they're Division 7, 6 or 7 usually.
They've gotten so small. I mean, that's the thing. They were with us when we were. Yeah, they were. I think they were 4 and we were 3 when they were in the SMAC with us for football. But I don't know. You always took pride in playing that game, I guess, because when you were a public school kid, these are kids you grew up with. These are kids that you knew were in your community, and you knew them your whole life. It wasn't like that college feel where you're putting together kids from all kind of different areas. So we took pride in that, and that was always a big game for us. Whether they could care less about playing us or not, when we walked off that field, especially there in Lumen Christi, that was a big deal for us. But it's. I don't know. I take it as like the whole pride thing of just understanding that the kids that I'm coaching have been in the community, if not their whole life, majority of it, And, they see guys, they saw the guys, 5, 6 years older than them playing. And then they're the kids that come up, and you just kind of have that consistent cycle of, this is what you looked up to as a kid. And now you get the opportunity to, to wear that jersey, to play underneath those lights, to play in that stadium. So, I think it's just a big pride thing, but, Uday will definitely have some more insight because he's been on both sides of it. So, and plus I really don't even know as far as the whole recruiting, I'm curious to see how much they truly,
lay it on us, Uday. Lay it on us.
Because, there's times absolutely where I look and I say, man, that's a great looking kid. Unfortunately he's in the wrong district, they're like, yeah, well, he would look great in our area, but hey, that's as far as it goes because, unfortunately he's got a different zip code.
You're going to have to convince your school board to start Sturgis Catholic, man.
Yeah. We'll see how that works out.
Uday, what do you got for us, man?
So as far as the public versus private in the playoffs thing, I mean, at the end of the day, the playoffs is a tournament to find out who the best team in a division is. And when they're all happen to be Catholic schools, that just happens some years. Would you then say, hey, the PSL, you guys are too good. You got to go compete with the private schools. We got to let these other public schools get a chance because Cass Tech, King, you guys keep rattling off state championships left and right. Where do you draw the line?
That is a valid point.
Well, yeah, I mean they are public schools technically.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't want to say it, but I also would argue that with the Detroit Public School League that you're probably getting a lot of kids with those districts so close to each other. I mean, I don't, I'm not going to sit here and say I know for a fact, but I would have to imagine kids are looking at King and Kaz Tech and going, I'm going to do what I can to play at one of those.
There's a lot of vacant apartments in Detroit. I mean, we'll leave it at that.
So Uday, do you have any insight for us on the recruiting aspect? First person insight here. How does that work?
So, okay, we're under strict guidelines that you cannot recruit. And I wish with every fiber of my being we could, because I'd be getting kids from Detroit left and right. I would be at every game when the Pals playing, standing in the stands, dancing around. Who is this guy with all the Cranbrook gear on, man? We have a squad. But we're not allowed to do that. But our head coach did come from he coached private school ball in the Northeast New York area. He's a Connecticut guy where they do actually get to recruit kids. So they'll go into places like Harlem. And at that point, it's almost like signing day when these kids pick schools to go to. It's a big deal out there. So, but he said, again, you're recruiting high school kids. It's almost like college. And he coached at the Division III and Division II level. So he kind of gets it, as far as the recruiting aspect of it goes. But it's pretty much like recruiting, except now instead of recruiting high school kids, you're recruiting middle school kids. So it's, where's the maturity level there and how they handle being recruited and things like that. But he was very excited to come to Michigan because you no longer get to recruit.
Oh. So how do you get these kids?
I'm still looking for the kids you guys are talking about, man.
So, okay, how do you get 1,500 Catholic boys into a school in Detroit? I just don't get it. Is there that many Catholics?
Which school are you talking about?
DCC.
CC is, so you got to remember though, that number is doubled because they don't have girls. So there's 800 or 900 boys. And then they just double the enrollment.
My numbers were off, but still, how do you do, where do you find them? And then there's how many schools in the league? 7, you said 9 total?
No, there's a lot more than that.
Total, there's
4
more
different
than that,
levels. Yeah. But at that top level, there's probably about 7, 8-ish.
So where do they find all these Catholic jacked guys that just are really good at sports?
A lot of times, man, it's just your brother played there, your dad played there. So if you're a ball player, you're playing there. This area, there's a lot of money. So, guys are going to go see sports trainers when they're younger. So, that kind of development is going to help out. Plus teams know hey, you send your kid to a CC, you send them to a Brother Rice. That's when you're going to get looks from those big time programs versus like playing at Bloomfield Hills High or something like that. Still a good program, but like it's not the same as being a stud on a CC team.
Are the Harding brothers from CC?
Yes, they're all CC guys.
So see, there's a nice family cycle.
Yeah, so that's the other thing too, man. You know those Catholics be popping out them boys.
It's the legacy, right? That legacy.
Exactly.
So this started back in like Knob, and then it's just trickled up till now. So
I mean, I don't know what happened before this, but I do remember being in middle school and I had CC parents talking and being like, hey, you'd be a good fit, but that's not like official recruiting. It's kind of like, hey, you thought about this?
So, and again, I know you haven't been at Cranbrook Kingswood too long, but would you get more of the impression that a lot of the Catholic schools, it's more a situation where maybe kids and families are going, hey, you know, on their own accord going, we're going to send you here. Maybe you're going to have more success in sports and we don't have to move. You don't need to be in a school district. We can just commute. Because, you know, that's the other thing about the private schools is it's not like a public school where you have to live within the school district to attend that school with a school like Lansing Catholic, who we have here in mid-Michigan, who just won a state championship. You got kids. We have had Grand Ledge kids who live in our community who attend Lansing Catholic and commute over to Lansing Catholic. So, I mean, would you agree more with that it's just families kind of making their own decision going, hey, we're going to send you there?
Well, so I think there's some of that too. And then once you kind of get classified as a football school, there's more of an inclination to sort of send you there. I don't think it's quite as outlandish as like an IMG prep or something like that, where like guys are coming from everywhere. But like I know at Cranbrook, just because of the academic value of the school, we're getting kids from like, we had kids from Korea on the team, Japan, England, Africa. Wow. So like you're getting guys from everywhere. We've got guys currently on the team. We got a kid that's from Chicago, kid from Colorado. So like you're getting guys from everywhere. And it's kind of like college in the sense that Chance kind of touched on this earlier. What I miss about public school is like you're playing with the kids you grew up with. And like a lot of, even I went to Salem. So like you had Plymouth, Canton, and Salem. But even being at Salem, about half of my teammates I had played with in like the youth leagues or against them. So like there was a familiarity there that like I feel like you sort of lose when you go to a school that's pulling from as many people as a school like Cranbrook.
I wonder if that's a situation where maybe the kids who are going to those places have not connected with anyone within their community, right? Or maybe they don't, you know, I don't want to sound harsh, but maybe they don't care. You know, maybe they care more about, you know, there is a level of narcissism in sports. Maybe they care more about, you know, their future and success with football than they do about being a part of their community team. And I think that's probably part of it as well. And I mean, you guys can agree or disagree with me, but I think you're seeing that more and more and more with kids and parents because of social media and how commercialized sports has become. Everyone wants, oh, what do I got to do to be a D1 athlete? What do I got to do to go do this? It's not about community and team. You don't see Palm Westphalia's as often winning state championships anymore. You see Hudsonville Unity Christian, right?
I would say though that's starting so young now. Like Uday said, it's starting in like early middle school that there is never like a loyalty to a community. Like they're already part of the Catholic whatever league or the early development school of whatever high school they go to, and so the community never like really is a thing. They went to whatever middle school, and then, you know, I mean, if you went to St. Mike's and then if St. Mike's had a high school, like you just grew up through the system.
Oh, one thing that you sort of sparked talking about that, the coolest thing I've seen by far, we went to Divine Child the COVID year and played them at Divine Child. And like, you want to talk about pageantry and culture for a Catholic school, the way they set it up. So we came off the bus Friday night. Their JV freshmen and like the middle school teams are all on the field doing their practice stuff right before the game. So like they come off the field by the time we're warming up and they go straight into the stands. So you're growing up watching Divine Child games, watch the guys that are coming through before you. And so I was like, man, like if you want to build a culture and a tradition at a Catholic school, that's such a cool way to do it. It's like you just grow up going to the games and then it's like, man, I can't wait till I'm the guy under the lights. So that was really cool to see. But like I feel like, again, you lose that unless it's like a school like a CC or a Brother Rice or a De La Salle where that tradition's sort of already there.
That's how Grand Ledge was. I mean, you'd grow up, every Friday night, like we might not have practice, but like your youth coach would be like, hey, we're going to the game Friday. Like, and we show up with our jerseys on and like, you literally watch the game. And then by your sophomore, junior year, you're on the team. And it's like, holy shit, I remember when I was picking my nose and eating a hot dog watching this game. So,
but I think that's what Uday is saying though, is how much more impressive that is for a community like, or not even a community, but like a school system like Divine Child to imitate what you're describing, Kory, what most of the small town blue collar schools have done forever.
Yeah.
You don't see that, I don't think, as much. And I think that would be a testament to a community or a school, you know, a private school building a program, you know, in addition to having good talent pool. One thing I would add to this conversation, especially as someone who's been a public school teacher now for 6 years, I would also add that a big hindrance that a lot of public schools have for something that you're touching on there, Uday, and this varies community to community, is socioeconomic, you know, background. Where is your community? Do you have a big wealthy portion of your community that has, you know, supporting families, not only for their kids, but for the school, right? You know, here in mid-Michigan, Lansing public schools, you know, there's a lot of poverty in Lansing and the Lansing schools. And so as a result, they're not going to have, you know, even though they're public schools, they're not going to have nearly as much support in terms of like a community around their kids, because they're dealing with way bigger problems, you know, money, trying to, you know, keep food on the table and things like that. So I think that is also a big factor for a lot of those public and private school situations in terms of support and things like that.
Speaking of the support, like I know Cranbrook, what is it? It's like if you're boarding, like, because we have boarding students that basically are going to college for high school. And that's like the kids from Asia I was talking about.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's like $38K or something for a year of high school.
That's another question we had. Holy shit.
Oh, you think about it, they're living there.
Yeah. But it's crazy just to think about, like, you're putting up almost 160 for one kid to go to high school. And then we have kids that are coming up through, like, they go to whatever it's called, Sunnyside or Morningside or something like that. Then they're going to the middle school. Then they're going through Cranbrook. They call them lifers. So, like, how much money do you have to put up?
That's what I was asking. So there's a lot of kids that are, like, there is, like, an elementary school.
Yes.
It is. Okay, cool.
And, like, so the way it works is free game for you guys. Because Cranbrook's so competitive, if you get in at the elementary or middle school level, that's, like, your best shot at getting into the high school. Because, like, they are just it's such a rigorous academic school that it's the only thing they care about. Like, I have kind of heard stories that maybe at other schools, like, your athletics can help you. But at Cranbrook, it's like, it's just so rigorous academically that it's like, that's the only thing that matters. If you have to take a test to get in, which I believe happens at, like, the PSL schools too. But, like, just to be able to get in, you need to pass the test. And then, like, it's pretty much luck after that.
Do you have student athletes who get, like, scholarships or, like, tuition reduced?
Oh, you mean at Cranbrook?
Yeah. Are you aware of that at all?
So again, like, the way that works is tied in through, like, academics and communities. Like, I know we have some kids from Detroit that sort of showed early on that they were, like, very, very smart kids. So we have programs that kind of help out with that. But, and I know there is, like, you can think of it like a college's financial aid program, but I don't know the numbers as far as how much you're getting helped out there.
So if you are, like, a kid who is, you know, academically gifted, but your family is not financially able to send the student there, that the school does have a program to kind of step in and help out a little bit.
Yeah, there is ways for you to get in, but again, you've got to be, like, a really smart kid. And usually it's tied into being a boarder. So we got kids from, like I said, Southfield and Detroit and, like, Romulus that come live on campus, and it's part of your scholarship. Like, you're there to do school.
So you're just like 6'6", 210. You got the arm that's of God himself, and then you just happen to be super smart, and then you're just slinging the rock at Cranbrook.
Kory, let me tell you, my first year as the D-line coach, my starting nose and tackle were 180 pounds apiece. So if you can find me those guys that are 6'6" with the brain like a rocket surgeon, I'd love it.
I think Kory's watching too much Catholic Central League football, too much CC and Orchard Lake and Brother
I
Rice.
will say, Kory, to your point though, I did see De La Salle at the Prep Bowl, and it looked like a straight up Division I college team warming up. Like just as far as the size of their bodies and how clean their operations are and everything, it was insane to watch.
Yeah, even Jacksonville and Christie, when we would scrimmage them or coach,
we scrimmage them every year. And
would play them in scrimmage, and it's just like watching them. You're like, what the hell? Everybody's got knee braces. Where the hell did you get those?
They have like a dozen. They have like every position has a coach, and then every position has like another coach. It's like a college team, and that was like, I mean, Rockford, who's a public school, we played Rockford in the playoffs this year, and that's the same thing. They had like 90 kids and 24 coaches. And I'm like, we're just sitting there like the cheerleaders and water boy as the other team comes out on the field. And you're like, what's going on here? Rockford University.
Are you recruiting down at Sturgis, or what's going on down there?
No, I am not recruiting.
I already told you, man, you gotta start Sturgis Catholic.
We are completely a one town, one community football school. I would love football down here. I'll tell you right now, numbers down here are tough. In our area, football is a dying sport. You know, there's, especially in our conference. I don't know what it's like in your guys' conference. You know, there was one team this year that had 3 teams. You know, had a freshman, JV, and varsity. And most, you know, and there were parts this year where, I mean, we started a JV with 24 kids. I think we ended up with 15, whether it was academics, getting injured, you know, it's tough right now to get bodies out. But, you know, kind of like what Uday was talking about, starting at that youth level, creating that culture of excitement for those Friday night games. And that's why it was huge for us. You know, 2 of our 3 wins this past year were home games. And that was awesome. Just so that those young kids, all those Rocket kids could see us, you know, underneath the lights, get the win, ring the bell, all those kind of things, you know, really kind of, because, you know, Sturgis there really hasn't been a culture at all. And that's, you know, really, we're on year 3 now of building what you know, we think is going to be, you know, winning football. And, but no, I would, once again, if I was able to kick out some NIL deals, we would be rolling, and I would absolutely find ways to go find that 6'6", 210 quarterback I could sling.
Go find yourself. Just go find yourself.
Another chance.
10 years in the future.
A scrawny Chance back in high school. Yeah, that'd be something. But no, I mean, hey, but also I think it's a testament to, you know, we love the challenge because it's just, you know, we get what we get, and, you know, now it's up to us to make the best of it. And hey, let's go out there and get to work. So that's the exciting part. That is, you know, I'll tell you what, that's rewarding.
We have a saying that we live by as a staff quite a bit at Grand Ledge, and it's not like a unique saying. People say this all the time, but we always say it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmies and the Joes. And I think that holds true with a lot of blue collar, you know, smaller communities or just community public school football in general, because you don't have a choice in who you're getting. That's like what you're touching on there. And we're not going to be able, you know, to go out and find anyone. So who you have, you got to kind of design, you know, you can have a base offense and a defense and special teams and things like that, but you really got to kind of tailor it to your talents. What can you do with these guys? Which I think is something that some of these other big private schools or big public schools don't really have to worry about. To kind of go on what you said there, and maybe Uday, I'd like to maybe hear you talk about it a little bit too. There was an article that came out from the west side of the state that I read at the end of the season that said there was in 2021 20,000, somewhere around 20,000 high school football players total in the state of Michigan. 10 years before, there was over 34,000. So in just the last 10 years, in just the state of Michigan. I mean, it's just as bad, if not worse, nationally. There is a huge drop in the number of kids going out for football. And Kory and I and Brett have talked about this. Tony Anise gave a great speech at the MHSFCA clinic. I think it was right before COVID. I think it was this time 2 years ago, about how kids have more distractions now than ever. He was very adamant. He even brought up a concussion expert and a helmet expert into his speech and had them talk, and was very adamant that it's not concussions. That's not why kids are not going out for football. That was a drop in football 10 years ago, not now. Now it's because I think kids are being pulled in so many other directions. And the one thing, the article I read that pointed out the most was specialization in sports. So I don't know if that's something you guys are seeing, kids being, and parents, and we kind of talked about this with a previous guest, Ryan Anderson, who used to play at DeWitt, kids being convinced and parents being convinced that they have to specialize in one sport in high school to be a, college athlete in that sport, that they shouldn't be doing 2 or 3 sports anymore. So I agree with you, Chance. We're seeing a big drop. We had one of our smallest teams in probably school history 2 years ago. We're a Division I high school, 1,600, 1,700 kids. And we didn't even have 40 kids out for varsity football 2 years ago. We were a little bit better this past season, but we barely scraped together a JV team. We had pretty solid freshman numbers, still lower than what they normally are. But like you mentioned, in our conference, we had many teams dropping a freshman team or dropping a JV team. I think we were one of only 3 schools in our 7-8 team conference that had all 3 teams. And we're Division I, Division II, Division III conference.
So, I think you look at it, football's hard, it's not basketball. We just roll and this isn't I love basketball, but you can just go play hoops anytime, football, especially you've got guys on their side of the ball. They want to hurt you, they want to hit you and they want to hit you. And
that's why we love this game, baby.
Exactly. So, and like in our situation, we have to work extremely hard in the off season to get competitive. That's just the weight room is our best friend the last 2 years. And that's why we're, if we're ever going to get it turned around, it's going to be because kids are buying in, they're getting stronger, they're getting faster and stronger. So, where I look, my first year, we had almost 70 kids. It was awesome. Numbers were huge. And we were like, whoa. And then all of a sudden, year 2, it dropped about 20 kids. And we were sitting here looking, it was like, it was all the kids that didn't want, they didn't want to put that work in. They didn't want, they knew, what they wanted to do in the off season, in the winter months through the summer, smoking weed. They wanted to be vaping, all that stuff now,
playing video games.
Absolutely. Video games. That's real. And those things are getting very addictive to these high school kids, and to the point where they're saying, screw football, I don't even care about that anymore. So, that's the battle of it right there, in which, I agree. I think, anybody that brings up the concussions, I think that was 10, 15 years ago. Now I just think it's just a pure laziness of some people. Luckily for us in our area, I don't deal with a lot of one sport athletes. It's been pretty installed in our community. If you're an athlete, you need to be able to play football, basketball, baseball, track, whatever, because, your buddies, your friends growing up, they're counting on you, because we're not pumping out, athlete after athlete. So, but it's, and we say it all the time, it's hard, football is hard, but if you want to do it the right way, we got to put that work in. We're going to see the results. It's just, we can't go out there and not put that work in and expect to see these great changes.
There's nothing that can replace hard work.
Yep. It's also easier for kids now to just say, hey, I didn't try hard and wasn't successful, than show up every day, go to the weight room, go to practice, be the first in sprints, be the first in the classroom, and then fail. And then it's like, oh, well, I suck. And so kids would rather just not try and then just be like, I don't want to play football, than just show up every day and try and then still fail.
So we
I was I think Uday's going to jump, but he's got something.
We fall into the other edge of the specialization, sort of the other side of it. So Cranbrook is kind of a hockey school, defending state champs. That's what we get a lot of kids that come to play hockey here. Our Colorado kid, he's a big kid, but he's one of those guys. So I'm an accountant. That's my real job. So when I come into the school, they're usually about getting out. And you'll see some of the huge kids where you're like, why isn't this kid on the football team? What's going on? Oh, coach, that's so-and-so. He's a hockey player. We're probably not going to get him. And it's like, dude, like, just come on. Like, and we look much different. But, like, again, talking numbers, I think we're in the ballpark of 40, 50 guys. Our sideline looks pretty packed during a varsity game, but that's because we let our JV guys suit up and stand there. So, like,
yeah, with that new 5-quarter rule that they instrumented last 2 seasons ago, it's really nice.
And we did, I think, like, I don't know the exact number. I want to say we had like 5 varsity DBs last year, maybe 6. We were pretty thick on linemen. So, like, 1 or 2 guys goes down. Like, JV kids were the next man up. So, like, they realistically had to play. But going back sort of to your numbers thing, one of the things that's hurt Cranbrook in the past is because a lot of the coaches have been people that weren't teachers that worked in the school. Like, there wasn't just a ton of connection between the football staff and, like, the rest of the school. So Coach Loff, who's our new head coach, is a math teacher there, so the kids are seeing him every day. I'm the DC, like, so I'm trying to make it a point to go to as many basketball games, as many weight room sessions as I can, just to sort of talk to the kids and, like, give them a chance to get to know me. And then we have had a couple kids. We did the same thing at the middle school too, because there was a lot of problems with kids that would play middle school football, and then for whatever reason, when they get up to high school, they just didn't want to play anymore. So we showed up to the banquet for that, got a chance to talk to a lot of the parents, and we're starting to see some of the guys that, you know, would have strayed in the past that are sort of like, hey, we got to beat you guys. We thought about it a little more, and we think he wants to play football. So it's cool to get those small wins. So hopefully that's a sign that the culture's turning in the right direction.
That's some good recruiting tactics, just internal recruiting, though.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, I mean, just show face.
And we talk about it all the time. Just get the kids who are supposed to be playing football to play football, and we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting to hear you guys, well, the 3 of you are all having the same issues, private or public. It's a reoccurring theme. It's sad to hear, but hopefully we can get more of those small wins that Uday's talking about and turn it around.
You still can't beat a Friday night, so I mean that's
I agree. You can't Friday Night Lights, baby. You can't beat that experience.
So you want to know how Bloomfield Hills Cranbrook is? We have, I don't know what's going on, but like something with the city will not let us. They only let us play 1 Friday night game a year. So when we're at home, we're Saturday noon kicks.
Isn't that pretty common for a lot of the Detroit Catholic schools, though? I know De La Salle and CC, don't they do that too?
I think CC does that too. I don't know about De La Salle, but I think Cass Tech also does it. So, like, there's teams that do it, but it's still not the same. I like having that Saturday as the college day.
Yes.
Friday night is.
Oh, man. As a 20-something-year-old, that would piss me off, losing my Saturdays.
It's because everybody's families are traveling from cross town to go to the game.
Yeah. But so we did end up, like, our homecoming game is usually our Friday night game. And so we were playing Walled Lake Central, who I think they're like a D2 team. Came down to the wire. We were up like 1 or 2. They kicked it from 47 for the game winner. So, like, everybody's up on their feet. Kid hits the bottom of the crossbar and it drills straight into the ground. I've never breathed like a deeper sigh of relief in my life. And the hear the student section just, who would have thought a high school kid could beat you from 47?
It happens, which is crazy because I've seen some high school kickers who literally can't kick the ball 10 yards, let alone 50.
Well, the thing that kind of shot him in the foot, too, is like second quarter, they had one that would have been like a 27-yard chip shot. They went for it on 4th, and we stuffed them. Like, there's your 3 points right there that you needed.
Yeah.
Was that a plug at your defense there?
Well, we also I gave up like 104 points my first 2 games. So I wouldn't say I'm a defensive expert by any means.
You're learning.
Hey, man, if it makes you feel any better, I gave up more than my first year as a DC. I gave up more than 50, I think, at least 3 times. So
Vince gave up 160,
including 63 to Davison, who won the state championship that year in 2019. That was
Vince
rough.
gave up 104 points to DeWitt last year, so we're fine.
50 and a half.
I think
50 and a
everybody
half. And
would
we won 6 games too. What'd you say, Chance?
I said I think everybody would give us 70 points to do it. So I think we're.
It was also their homecoming, and Bally Sports Detroit filmed that game live. I've never seen a team so hype, and they just took that energy and ran with it. And our kids, we're not ready.
I don't know.
Unfortunately,
That and was it 19 when we played Davison the year they won the state title?
yes.
At Davison, and I'll never forget we were not good that year. They'd come out of the tunnel with a flag, plant it in the middle of the field, do the throat cross right in front of our bench, and there was literally piles of shit just on the field from our kids shitting their pants. It was, even I was like, holy shit, we're really doing this, Harry. And then this team came out and was probably the most physical high school team I've ever seen. On top of being
that one, they had multiple kids play Division I that
team. Yeah, they were so good. It was
not good. It was rough.
Friday Night Lights though.
Is Davison up by you guys then?
No, they're by Flint. It was a drive. It was hour and 40-minute drive or something. Hour and a half.
First year head coach, we had Dave. Who all did we have, Vince? We had Davison.
Oh my God! It was our new head coach came in, and our schedule was Hudsonville, East Kentwood, East Lansing, who went undefeated that year, or went like 8-1 that year. East Lansing's in our conference. Davison. Our 3 non-conference games were 3 D1 schools who all went like 2 or 3 rounds deep in the playoffs.
Didn't you play De La Salle too?
No, the year before we played Brother Rice. The year before was Brother. We almost beat him. Yeah, it was crazy. But anyway, do we have anything else we want to add? Wrap up this conversation here. I would just add, I don't know what the answer is. And I know Tony Anise kind of touched on it at his speech a couple years ago. I don't know what the answer is to get kids come back out for football. I think something that Chance and Uday, you guys both kind of talked about is, that off-season culture, I think, is huge. And one thing, I think Uday, you just said it too. One thing that's getting harder and harder is there's not a lot of coaches who teach anymore. Teaching is not a profession that's desirable at all. I mean, I've taught for 6 years, and I would not blame anyone for not wanting to be a teacher. I mean, it's tough, especially now. I mean, everyone's aware of the reasons why. I don't need to get into that. But as a result, you're not seeing a lot of coaches for any sports at high school who are in the building anymore. It's tough. And if you're not in the building, Chance, I sorry, I can't remember. I'm pretty sure you don't work in the building. You have a job outside of the school district, right?
Nope, I work out. So yeah, I mean, I have of the 8 guys, we have 1 teacher on staff, and then our SOR officer is also on staff. So I have, 1 and a half guys in the building. But I mean, when I was in school, I mean, I think 4 or 5 of our coaches, you saw them all day.
I remember Brett, Kory, and I, when we all played at Grand Ledge, I think almost all of our staff worked in the building or in the district pretty much. I mean, yeah. I mean, now I think of the 13 or 14 total coaches we have between freshman and varsity that work at Grand Ledge, like 3 or 4 total, maybe 5. I would have to sit and think, but it's not a lot. I mean, and I think, you got to do what you got to do in the off season though, to build that culture and try and get guys out for football. But I think there's also a lot of X factors that none of us have any control over. Distractions that kids have and things that are being fed into parents' ears. I don't know about your guys' opinion on this, and I've shared it with Kory and Brett before, but I can't stand these 7-on-7 leagues that run all winter long and seem to convince kids that getting into a turf indoor building and playing in shorts and a t-shirt 7-on-7 football is better than being in the weight room and lifting weights and, doing agility training. I'm not saying you can't do that stuff. Throwing's good. I mean, getting out and running that stuff, but these leagues that seem to convince them they should be doing that all the time, all week long, all off season, when it's like, it's okay to do it maybe once in a while, but you got to get in the weight room. And I think, like you said, I think it was Chance that kids don't really want to do that stuff anymore. They don't want to work hard. And I don't know how you convince them otherwise. I don't really have an answer, but
that 7-on-7 stuff is nuts. That's insane.
It's taken over.
There's a lot of money in it now.
The money, yeah, exactly. The money in it and the way that some of these people are, how much money they're making off of it is
Predatory.
Like it is messed up almost to the point where I looked at some, I get flyers all the time in my mailbox.
Yeah.
7-on-7, blah, blah, this, bring your quarterback and 2 receivers for $260 for 2 hours. I'm sitting there like,
you're like, I'm going to work with my guys.
Go into this market. I mean, holy smokes! If I just wanted to make money, that's where you should be right now. But when you start taking away and you're not showing up to team workouts, you're not with your guys, that's an issue. Because you can't tell me that doesn't play a factor in football games in the fall when it's the gritty time in the fourth quarter and you're looking around and, well, hey man, you were nowhere to be found all off season, or this, like that's real, and that stuff plays a huge factor in it. So, but unfortunately, that's a reality of where we're at right now. That's the easy part. We can go chuck the football up and quarterbacks can hold it for 6 seconds and have all that fun, but good luck doing that on a Friday night. So
these kids don't realize though, like once you get to college, you spend like 3/4 of your year working out just to play a season. Like literally in the summer, you're working out, not even really the summer, probably like about the end of spring ball. Yeah. Until August. You are like 5 days a week, just full on strength and speed training every day. But then in high school, they're like, oh, I can't work out today, coach. I got a 7-on-7 tournament in Idaho. Like, shut the fuck up. Like,
yeah. I mean, I don't know about you, Chance, but I mean, quarterbacks that I knew throughout college, I mean, in the summer, they supplemented lifting with throwing, right? The focus was lifting, getting bigger, getting stronger, getting faster, more agile, working on footwork. And then when all that was done, then they would work, getting some routes in. The primary focus wasn't 7-on-7 leagues. So I don't know at what, it's not even real football. I don't know at what point that has become the focus. And I get it for quarterbacks and wide receivers, right? Throwing, working on routes, your pass drops, your reads, like that's very important. But now they've sucked in all these defensive players. And as a defensive coach and a guy who played defensive football, it doesn't help you for defense other than maybe some one-on-one competition. It is not realistic at all for defensive football players. 7-on-7. It doesn't help you.
It's a social media thing. I mean, when you're going and you're working out on your own in your own school gym, you're not going on social media. You're not getting posted all over Twitter. But when you're going to a big 7-on-7 legacy tournament in Wixom or in Florida somewhere, it's all over social media. You get your picture taken in front of the backdrop. You get to post it to your Twitter handle. I mean, that's all it is. It's just an attention grab.
Get interviewed. Kory, you throwing up some deuces?
I was doing my backdrop picture. Whatever they do nowadays.
I don't know about your guys' league, but as far as like the 7-on-7 stuff goes, in the Catholic League, they're running the ball 65% of the time. So what's that 7-on-7 reps doing? And then like when it is a situation where you're gonna have to throw it, I don't know about what you guys do, but we're playing a lot of games and blitzing it. So it's like, are you really going to?
Yeah, you can't do that in 7-on-7. There's a guy that we played high school ball with. If he's listening, Jake Quain. Sorry, I'm calling out your staff just a little bit. I don't want to get on Granville. He coaches at Granville, but we had a 7-on-7 with Granville this summer at our place, and we run an odd front. We run a 3-man front defense, right? So I mean, we're a 3-4 defense. And the problem is a lot of the time we were throwing out a 5th guy too, because, an 8th guy, because we only play 3D linemen. So we have 8 guys between our linebackers and our secondary. And I'm
Cheater.
like, they got pissed, but I'm like, You want me to run something that we're not going to teach the kids for August? But guess what? I told him after the fact, I'm like, I don't give a shit. I don't care about 7-on-7s. There is no state championship for 7-on-7s. I'm going to teach my kids what we're running a few weeks from now, come August, so that they understand this defense and what their expectations are. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings in a 7-on-7 where you guys are running a tight end set under center half the time. Like
I want you to
you
blitz
clearly
this
don't
year.
care about it either.
Instead of dropping 8, I want you to start sending 2 this year.
We did. To be fair, we were sending. I was blitzing our outside backers and having them take a knee. I was having them take a knee at the line of scrimmage because I'm like,
I want full contact.
Oh, you want
just send them, send the house, engage.
Vince, you and I would probably fight then at 7-on-7s then because we've played teams for that. It's 8 and then all of a sudden it's 9 and I'm like,
oh, I wouldn't do that.
Really?
Like, I mean, I can.
Okay, you know what? We're gonna run inside zone here since you're gonna be dropping 9 guys 15 yards. Like, are you kidding me? Like we're that worried right now about giving up a couple, pass plays that we're gonna start dropping 9 guys. Like.
I that's ridiculous. If you are playing teams who in 7-on-7 are putting back 9, but like whether you believe me or not, legitimately we run a 3-4 defense. So I'm like, I'm not going to put something out there that we're not going to be doing and confuse our kids. The year before we ran an even front. We had a 4-man, a 4-2 or 4-3 defense. So that's what we were putting out there. But if it pisses a team off, I don't really care. We don't win state championships playing 7-on-7s or go to the playoffs playing 7-on-7. So whatever. I don't know. Some people get really into 7-on-7s and it's a big deal for them. And they go to tournaments like we were talking about, winning trophies. But I'm sorry, at the end of the day, people aren't going to remember the 7-on-7 legacy tournament champion.
The only 7-on-7.
I do think with like the height, like you're actually your team now. So we're talking like end of July, early August stuff. I really like, it's a great opportunity for me to see kids just compete though. Like you see, okay, homeboy here is talking a lot. How are we going to handle trash talk? Because that's the nature of 7-on-7 now. Is everybody can just run their mouth because they don't have to worry about
hitting. Yeah,
me bringing double edge off, coming and cleaning your quarterback clock. No, we're just going to run our mouth because we don't have to get hit at all. So that's the one aspect I love about it is okay, who's gonna raise that kind of occasion? Who's going to enjoy that? Who's going to be able to handle that? Because that's pretty much what it is nowadays. And I can only imagine how Uday is at 7-on-7s. He's probably the loudest kid out there.
His shirt's off. He's just like, let's go.
I know how you were in college, so I'm sure you're the absolute worst when it comes to 7-on-7s. How loud you are.
I didn't know what was going on enough to be fired up. I'm just trying to call the 2 coverages I know. Might be different.
I was just going to say that is the one thing I agree with you, Chance, is there are a couple things that from summer 7-on-7s that are beneficial. I think alignment, assignment for your just base offense and defense, getting lined up correctly, knowing what your assignment is pre-snap is very important. I think the quarterbacks and wide receivers, it's great for their reads, their pass drops, their route running. I think that's great. And the competition. I do agree some of that one-on-one competition, and you can get a little bit physical, right? Get hands-on. We always do 7-on-7s with PW, and PW, I mean, they're a Division 7 school and they will play physical, with some of their talent and their kind of hard-nosed attitude. So, I mean, it is good for that. I just don't think it should be the primary focus. That's frustrated me. As I've been coaching now for 6 years already, which is crazy, but I've seen in just 6 years, the change in the off season here and this this like draw to these leagues that kids are being pulled away. I mean, we're losing kids sometimes in off season workouts to these leagues that are not important. You should be in the winter. You should be lifting and doing footwork, speed training, agility, not worried. I mean, you shouldn't really be worrying about that stuff. I mean, if you have a little bit of throwing like once a week on like a Sunday, with a quarterback and some wide receivers, that's great. But spending hours and hours or days and days on 7-on-7 leagues when you should be getting bigger and stronger, I don't agree with it.
I will say,
go ahead.
I was going to say the best thing I've seen in a 7-on-7 though is we were at an invitational last year where we played Cass Tech, and it was one of Coach Rushing's probably like first events with Cass Tech as the head coach. They didn't fly to the football on the first snap, like kind of taking us lightly. He had them doing down-ups from the minute we got like back to the huddle he's like, you guys don't want to fly around and play Cass Tech football. We'll do it like this. I was like, dude, let's go. Let's get that edge going. Shout out to Coach Rushing. He's the man.
We need to put a shot collar on the quarterbacks, and once they hit 4 seconds, if they don't throw it, they just get electrocuted.
They
And
do
then
have
it would.
They do have a very long internal clock going, where it's kind of like, what are we doing, man? Like,
We're going
Like,
one.
I've seen this movie. Somebody's definitely dead.
one Mississippi, two
Hey, you got to get through that whole peer progression. Come on, 1 to 4. You have time for all of them. Sit back there.
pat.
Well, all right, gentlemen. We've been going for about an hour, a little over an hour here. Or shit, it's almost 10:30. We've been going for a while, almost an hour and a half. Do you guys have any other thoughts here to kind of wrap this up? Otherwise, we'll end this thing.
I just
Follow
want to
me
say
on
thank
Twitter.
you guys.
Oh yeah, Uday. I'll put links to these guys, but Uday and Chance. Uday, go ahead. Anything to plug? Anything you want to plug here for the people listening or watching?
Yeah, man. Follow me on Twitter at Coach U Singh. You got any ideas? I'm down to talk through them with you. Love talking ball, so feel free to reach out. Let's talk some ball.
Yeah, no, Vince, man, this was fun, guys. I appreciate it. Anytime you can get on it and talk football. It's the season is quickly approaching. I know everyone kind of jokes about it, but before you know it, it'll be June and our summer programs will be taking off. So appreciate the time. This was fun.
Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for coming on, guys. It was really interesting to get to know you and hear your insight on football. And I would like to see a 7-on-7 between your 3 schools this summer. That'd be fun.
I think the Ledge is taking that one.
We'll do it down at Muddy
Ledge,
Waters.
Oh,
The Muddy Waters Classic. We just birthed it right here.
Stadium. Well, all right, guys. Thanks for coming on. Appreciate you taking some time here out on a Tuesday night to talk football. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm sure you guys are always ready to talk some football because I know we are. But yeah, Chance Stewart, we got Uday Singh, Vince, Kory, and Brett. Great Lakes State football. We'll be back with another episode very soon. Go Green.
Go Blue.
So I hope you enjoyed listening to our conversation there with Chance Stewart and Uday Singh. We appreciate having them on. If you are watching on YouTube and you check in the description, I'll have the links to those guys' socials as well as the description on the podcast stores. And we wish the best of luck to Sturgis High School football and Cranbrook Kingswood in the 2022 season. Before we wrap this thing up, it is my turn to recommend. Brett kicked us off 2 weeks ago with his recommendation, Brass Ring Brewing. And then last week, Kory recommended Vestal Inn over on the west side of the state. Both those places, brewery and restaurant on the west side. Going forward, anytime we recommend something, it can be anything we want, but I'm going to keep the trend going here with a brewery. And I think these guys can probably already guess what brewery I'm going to recommend. Ben, Ed, I am plugging you guys here. I will share this out so you see it. Brickhaven Brewing Company, Grand Ledge, Michigan. And I do have a beer I have to recommend. If you ever make your way to the west side of Lansing, you got to go to Grand Ledge's own Brickhaven Brewing Company. It's in the old St. Michael's Church right downtown, run by brothers Ben and Ed, opened in 2017. And they do have food as well as some great beers. And I got to tell you, I have been to a lot of breweries since I've started drinking craft beer. About the last 8 years of my life here, I've been drinking craft beer. And I have not been to very many breweries that are so much quality over quantity. Ben and Ed's beers, they usually have somewhere between 12 and 14 or 12 and 15 beers on tap. And I'm telling you, not a single one is a bad beer. And if you want a recommendation, I'm telling you right now, you got to try the Onyx Edge Black IPA or the ECB Eaton County Bitter. Those are probably 2 of my favorites. So that's my recommendation for the week. Kory is putting up the ECB. That's his favorite beer. They got a lot of great beers though, but those are some good ones. So Brickhaven Brewing Company, Grand Ledge, Michigan. Check them out.
If I'm not mistaken, I think I still have a free growler from there.
Brett is owed a growler of beer there from Kory and I for winning. What was that? Was that for the college championship?
MHSAA picks.
Oh, the state championship picks. That's right. So Brett is owed that. We still have not gotten that to him. All right. We'll get that to him soon. All right. So we're going to wrap things up
It's
here.
in the mail.
It's in the mail. Thanks for listening to episode 9 of the Great Lakes State Football Podcast. Make sure that if you are listening, that after you're done, you go over to Twitter, follow us at GLSF Ball, BALL. Head over to Instagram at Great Lakes State Football. Make sure if you prefer watching us on YouTube, you want to see our smiling faces, subscribe. Great Lakes State Football. Like, share, comment on those videos for us. We're also available on all your favorite podcast stores, including Apple and Spotify. Please leave us a 5-star review at those stores, and appreciate anyone who's listening to 3 idiots talking football about Michigan football every week. All right. That's it for episode 9. I'm Vince. We got Kory, Brett, Great Lakes State Football, episode 9. Go Green and go Chargers.
Buenas noches.